dark and rainy. Tap, tap, tap. Jack sat up in bed. Rain tapped against his window. His clock said 5 a.m., and it was still dark outside. Annie peeked into his room. "Are you awake?" she whispered. "Yep," said Jack. "Ready to find some special magic?" she asked. "Maybe we should wait," said Jack. "It's so dark and rainy." "No waiting," said Annie. "I'll get an umbrella. You bring a flashlight. Meet you downstairs." Okay, said Jack. He jumped out of his bed and he pulled his clothes and put on a jacket. Then he grabbed his backpack and a flashlight. Jack slipped downstairs and out the front door. Annie stood on the porch in jeans and t-shirt. The air was chilly and breezy. "Don't you need a sweater or something?" said Jack. "I'm okay," she said. "Let's go." Annie raised the umbrella. Jack turned on the flashlight, and they followed a circle in rainy light down their street into the woods. They headed through the Frog Creek woods. The flashlight lit up the trees, the wet leaves, and dark branches. Then it shined on a dangling rope ladder. Jack raised the flashlight beam. "There it is," he said. A circle of light lit the magic treehouse. "Morgan's not there," said Annie. "I can tell." "Maybe she left us a message," said Jack. Jack grabbed the rope ladder and started up. Annie put the umbrella down and followed. Then they climbed inside. Jack shined the flashlight around the treehouse. Morgan Le Fay wasn't there, but the scrolls from their trip to Old England were. "Here's proof we found a special magic yesterday," she said. "Yeah," said Jack, smiling. "Theater magic." He had great memories of acting in a play by their friend William Shakespeare. "Well," said Jack, "not all rainforests have big rivers. There are different kinds of rainforest, you know." "Right," said Annie. She pointed to the cover of the book. "I wish we could go there." The wind started to blow. "Oh, remember the jaguar?" said Annie. "And the vampire bats?" "Wait," said Jack. But it was too late. The wind was blowing harder. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2. Cloud Forest. Jack opened his eyes. "And I can tell what kind of rainforest this is," said Annie. She stared out the window. Jack looked out too. It seemed to be daytime, but he couldn't see much of anything, and the quiet forest was covered with fog. Jack opened his research book and read. The misty rainforest in the mountains of Central Africa is called a cloud forest. "Oh, I get it," said Annie. "We're up so high, it's like we're in a cloud." "Cool," said Jack, and he pulled out his notebook and read. Cloud forest. Rainforest high up in mountains. Then he read more. The African cloud forest is home to many animals, including elephants, water buffaloes, black leopards. Jack looked up. "Black leopards," he said. "Don't worry," said Annie. Jack cleared his throat and kept reading. "Antelopes, wild hogs, and gorillas." "Gorillas?" said Annie. "Don't worry," said Jack. "I'm not worried. I love gorillas," said Annie. "They're totally great." "I don't know about that," said Jack, and he pictured huge apes pounding their chest. "I'd like to study them, though. Write down their habitats and behaviors, just like a real scientist." "Whatever," said Annie. "Let's just go." "This will be a fun adventure," and she took off down the ladder. Jack threw his notebook, the research book, and the flashlight into his pack. He hooked the umbrella over his arm, then he followed Annie. When they stepped onto the ground, Jack could see better, and the fog had turned into a fine mist. Jack and Annie started through the cloud forest. They walked around huge trees draped with moss, and they pushed past tall shrubs and leafy plants. "Wow, look at that tree," said Annie. She pointed to a fat tree. It had wide lower limbs padded with thick cushions of moss. "It looked like a piece of furniture," said Annie. "Like an armchair." "Yeah," said Jack. "I better draw it." He put the umbrella on the ground. He pulled out the flashlight out of his bag and put it and put it next to the umbrella. Then he took out his notebook and pencil. As Annie walked ahead, Jack started to draw a simple picture of the flat tree. "Hey, Jack," Annie called in a whispery voice. "Come here, quick." Jack grabbed his pack. He moved around the tree and caught up with Annie. "Listen," she said. Jack heard branches snap. Crack. "A leopard?" he wondered. Crack, crack. Jack nervously looked around the forest. "Maybe we should go back to the treehouse," he said. "We could read a little more and learn a little more." Annie didn't answer, and Jack turned to her. She was grinning ear to ear as she gazed through the bushes. Jack followed her gaze. A dark, shaggy little head was peeking out from a cluster of leaves. "Boo, boo," a small gorilla asked.